I work with Humane Society International India for the Disaster Risk Reduction and Response Department. Am I audible? Okay, cool. So, let me tell you a few things about India. Awesome. Okay. So, India is really the champions in many things. Like one of the biggest country with population, and India has around 22 major languages with 415 dialects that are spoken. India has 7,500 kilometer longest coastline and highest mountain range in the world, the Himalayas in the north, the Thar Desert to the west, the Gangetic Delta to the east, and the Deccan Plateau in the south. The country is home to vast ecological diversity. It is the largest producer of milk, not so proud of that, pulses, jute, and ranks as the second largest producer of rice, wheat, sugarcane, and one of the largest producers of livestock as well. Again, not so proud of that. And worth $2.1 trillion, India is the world third largest economy after US and China. The country tops in disasters as well. It has the top risk vulnerability index and exposure to a wide variety of disasters. The disaster risk of animals, including humans, India face are really huge. We are prone to hazards like cyclones, floods, avalanches, drought, and whatnot. Many such each area of India is vulnerable to one or the other disaster. If you go southern part, you have coastal hazards. Out of the 7,500 kilometer coastline, almost 6,700 is prone to disasters, like coastal hazards like coastal erosion and floods. Too much flooding in India, and cyclones. So being in the tropical zone, so in the Japan side they are called typhoons and US hurricanes, but all those tropical zones these days, number of cyclones are increasing. You can see the oceans are getting hotter and hotter every day. So India tops in all those things as well in the disaster side as well. So this is one data shared by the EMDAT, talks about the disaster type 2022. So compared to the 2002 to 2021 annual average. From 2002 to 2021, India had an average number of disasters of 370. And 2022 alone, the world, I'm sorry. In 2022 alone, it is 387. So you can just look at the number, average and the 1 year alone. And floods have the highest share. This is again number of disasters by continent and top 10 countries in 2022. Again, EMDAT's data, where you can see Asia have really huge number of disasters. This is the top 10 countries that experienced the greatest number of disasters from 2020 to 2021. Where you can see the Asian countries. So that's the number of disasters, and that's the largest number of disaster-related fatalities. So just look at the Asian side and look at India as well. India has 4,743 fatalities. That is human fatalities alone related to disasters. So this is the one of the major hazard profile of India, like how earthquakes. So over 56% of India's landmass is prone to earthquakes. Over 68% of India's landmass is prone to drought. Over 12% of India's landmass is prone to floods. Coastal hazards, 76%. And this is just the largest numbers you see. There are landslides comes along with floods, and this is one of the landslide sites we visited in Kerala 2021. The whole family of that dog was gone, whole family. So massive landslides happen in India across the Western Ghats area, the Northeast area, the north where the Himalayan region is there, The name becomes avalanches. That's it. Nothing else changes. And this is the number of disasters India faced in 2010 to 2021. 191 disaster. The 12% landmass floods prone areas have the highest share. And that number is also changing. We have some years old data, but that number is also changing. The floods phenomenon is increasing year by year. And this is the animal vulnerability. Animals in disasters. Over 1 million cattle in India are lost due to floods every year. 44% of countries' livestock are prone to disasters, like drought. And a wide majority of these animals are with the rural population of India. Pastoral farmers who rear livestock as the major source of their livelihood. They take care of their animal really well. They are really poor. They come under the poverty line, and if something happens to them, if they are hit by a disaster, will not be able to recover from that disaster very soon. And with that struggle, next year another one, next year another one. It just cascades, goes on. The vulnerability just adds on. And India's livestock sector counts to almost 36% of the disaster loss. And yeah, like I told, 70%. And these are all not latest data. We have very much deficiency in data. These are some numbers which we found are almost accurate. And we do not get the luxury of data of disaster, how many animals are lost due to disasters. Livestock, yes, some data is there. What about companion animals? What about working like horses, donkeys, all those animals? We do not have data of their disaster loss, which is a big deficiency. And animals exposed to floods in India. Why I have specified floods and drought as well is because they are one of the riskiest disaster India is facing in these recent years. And these are data of livestock we got, of number of cattle that's due to from 2008 to 2010, the pattern. And though it changes, it has a constant increasing rate over the years. And this is just to show you the impact of floods in India. This image is a satellite image taken from from one district in Uttar Pradesh, which was affected by floods this year. This is a normal course of the river. The river is called River Ganga. This is a normal course. And this is how the river is flowing after the disaster. So the impact of the areas where you can see in red here on the left side are built up areas, are where people are living or where animals are living. So all those areas are affected. And many of these communities do not have the capacity to withstand such amount of floods. Maybe they are facing these floods after 10 years, 30 years like that. So a lot of areas where it got flooded in India this year, they were not used to such amount of flooding, such amount of rainfall. It was a surprise to them. So people don't know how to be prepared for such events. So that's the impact. That's how I wanted you to understand the disaster profile in India. And what do animals have to do with disaster resilience? So and what is disaster resilience like? Here I'm talking only about disaster risk reduction, disaster preparedness. So I'm not talking about disaster response or relief. We'll get onto that later. And why animals are important? Why do we have to prepare for the disaster? They say, the UN say, every $1 you invest in disaster risk reduction, disaster preparedness initiatives equals to every $7 you spend on disaster rescue relief operations. So when you are prepared enough, when you know what an early warning is, what a red alert is, what are the evacuation routes, where to go when you hear the early warning, and where to take your animals, what to keep with you, what are the emergency kits, and how to prepare your house in a disaster resilient way, how to elevate your house and construct to withstand the floods, what is the level of floods, what will happen in 30 years, After in 2050, a flooding is happening, until where the water will go, accordingly how we can plan. All those things comes in the disaster risk reduction planning. How a building can be made earthquake resilient, how communities, how we should ask the communities how you want your house to be made, what is a traditional style, and accordingly we will make houses for you which are disaster resilient. All these things comes as a part of disaster risk reduction and preparedness measures. So what do animals have to do with it? Animal safety and well-being. Of course, we have been talking about this topic. Animals have so it is our duty to safeguard our animals. They feel every kind of emotion and pain as we feel and suffer. So it is our moral responsibility to safeguard our animals from any kind of threat. And the welfare of human and animals are interlinked. The One Health approach we talk about. And also there is something called attachment theory. It talks about affectional ties between a primary caregiver and an infant. It's a psychological theory, but studies have also shown that this theory is used to understand the close bond between humans and non-human animals. Attachment to animal often leads to behaviors such as proximity maintenance, providing a safe haven, acting as a secure base for risk taking, and experiencing separation distress when separated from them. Many of you might have felt, those who have been in the disaster response sites also, or who have affected by disasters also know this, or just who have read about disasters. People do not leave their animal behind. People want their animals to be taken with them, be it companion animals, be it livestock. We think people do not have that much attachment with the cattle because they are used for milching. No, they have that tie emotionally, as well as they are their livelihood. Their life depends upon those animals. If they are lost, they have nothing to return to. So they will not leave a site without their animals. Those bonds are there. So these kind of theories talks about such bonds, and they can be compared with human and animals. And livelihoods and economy, of course. We have been working on various studies to understand the economic impact of people losing their animals to disasters. When a person loses their animal, for example, a person who have 5 cattle lost 2 of their cattle in a flood this year, and the economic loss, the income loss from that animal loss might take they might get some help from the government. Let's say 50% of the cost is covered from the government. And next year, if it again floods and that person lost one or two of his or her animal, that economic impact just cascades, just adds on. He gets he is put in such a vulnerability where from here he cannot get out at all. It adds on. So there is no getting out from that disaster vulnerability. Disaster happens only the vulnerability meets hazards. A flood is a natural phenomenon. Earthquake is a natural phenomenon. Plates are there, tectonic plates are there. Indonesia, we are standing in the ring of fire. So earthquakes, it's a very high seismic zone. So these are all natural phenomena. We are here, we are exposed is one thing. We are not able to withstand if such an earthquake happens, this building falls down. Second thing, we do not have enough money if our house is destroyed, and we do not have enough money to build another house or find another shelter. That's another vulnerability. If all these vulnerabilities meets with that natural phenomenon, which we call as hazards, then only it becomes a disaster. Otherwise, it is a natural phenomenon. So there is nothing called natural disasters. It's all man-made disasters. And of course, One Health. We have been talking about One Health a lot, so I don't want to get into that again. But almost 75% of the zoonotic diseases which transfer to humans, sources are animals. So we need to be careful about that and make sure animals are well taken care of. Again, these are some images of we responding in the disaster, providing relief to various animals in Kerala, southern state of India. So the learning we got is the loss of livestock for pastoralists could accelerate family descent into poverty, intensifying their vulnerability and making it more difficult to build resilience for any future hazards. Oh. What do we have in India? We have a Disaster Management Act which doesn't talk about animals and sees them as properties. We have a national disaster management policy which have a small mention of animals. Okay, animals should be part of the planning. We have a national disaster management plan 2019 which talks about disaster response to animals. When a disaster happens, how to provide relief for animals, how to rescue animals. We have a national disaster management plan for livestock. Don't even read that. We have a handbook for the management of animals in disasters, copy of Lex Standards, I would say, and talks only about disaster response part. And only veterinarians can understand, I guess. And so that they all focus on in here, the response phase. There is an entire other stage. After response comes the recovery, where reconstruction and all those things comes. But this stage, mitigation and preparedness stage, together is called the disaster risk reduction phase. If we invest enough money, effort in that phase, I'm sure an ideal situation won't arise, but a lot of such loss, economic and lives loss, will reduce. We will see that happening, and we have been seeing that happening in many areas. So what do we need? We need to focus on that area. We need independent disaster management plans focused on animals. Like how we have for human beings, we need risk assessment studies. In an area, what are the potential hazards? What are the potential risks? What are the potential vulnerabilities? And what are the potential capacities the community have to safeguard themselves and their animals? If you do such studies, if you have such tools to do such studies, which we do not have, not even for human beings, we will be able to understand what are the gaps and plan accordingly. We need to have that data on animal loss. 3 minutes, thank you. We need to do training and capacity building of communities. Make them building awareness is the key. They don't know. Until 2018, my state didn't know what is red alert, what is green alert. Never had an idea. There is something called blue alert for dams. It is common for almost everywhere. How many people know about these things? We don't know. So building those awareness is the key. Knowing where to go, what to do, whom to call, what is an emergency kit, what to keep with us when we are going somewhere, what are the key documents we need to go, what should we leave behind, all those things. Simple knowledge of untying your animals. If you cannot take your animals with you while leaving from a disastrous site, is something people don't know. And a lot of animals die because they are tied and left behind. A lot of animals. And better community these can be done only through communities. And right to temporary shelters. Animals do not have temporary shelters in India. So all those things, standard operating guidelines, research and exploration, we do not have researchers. We do not understand the vulnerability animals face in India. We need to have more, the psychosocial impact of people losing their animals, economic impact, some topics I'm talking about. A lot of such researchers has to come. Only then we will be able to come up with recommendations. So these are some things we do. We start that from the schools. Children are the future, and we need to educate children to make them aware, and the next generation will have a better preparedness measure. Community-based disaster management programs we conduct with the district. India has nation, state, district, village, ward, all those granular level governance system. So we reach to the ground level and make the community aware what to do before, during, and after a disaster, how to take care of animals, what is the basic first aid, and what are the temporary shelter locations available for their animals in their areas. We ask the community, and the community tells us in these areas, they are the landslide vulnerable areas and flood prone areas. And in such areas, where are the safe locations where they can build shelter for their animals. We submit this to the administration and tell them these are the potential temporary shelter locations, and this is where you can build, or this is where you can take your animals when there is a disaster alert. So such kind of measures can be made. Yeah, 1 minute. Okay. I'll have to wait until this is finished. Yeah. So such kind of awareness building, state level consultations, national level consultations, district level consultations with the authorities, and let them speak, let them know what is happening, and let them come up with the recommendation. Then we can go and knock their doors. Okay, you said this, we need to do this, we will help you doing this. And exhibition programs. These are our information, education, and communication materials. So if you scan this QR, you'll be able to get this in your mobile. We have made these materials in around 6 languages, and only you will get only in 3 languages in this QR. The other languages are on the way, getting up the web, and so you will also get in English. You can download. And outreach programs. With the community, we could reach out to almost, with all those initiatives, within 1 year, we could reach out to almost 30,000 plus animals, 800 plus people, 2,000 schools and university students, and over 6,000 such materials. This we could do in 1 year. And we could actually see the change in community with these initiatives. And we aim to do this every year and spread in various states and districts of India. So I finished my slide with this. So when we say disaster risk reduction, disaster risk management, to be inclusive, we do not really include animals in that word inclusive. Hazards or disasters do not discriminate between humans and animals, but human responses often do. What we need to do is make sure they are included in the each and every planning process, starting from the houses. When you're planning, have a disaster management plan for our houses, include your animals, teach your kids this is how you have to treat your animals. All those things, we need to start from the schools up to the authorities who actually make these things and implement these things. So yeah, that's about it. And these are some websites you can refer to know more about disaster, what is disaster management, disaster risk reduction, all those things. These are some global targets. Sendai framework is one global target which specifically talks about disaster risk reduction of animals. So governments, UN nations have to follow these standards. So you can go to your governments, and animals should be included because this is your target. These are government's targets. You'll have to SDGs. Almost 50% of SDGs talks about animals. No poverty, livelihoods. Just one example. So all those things talks about animals. So it's just that we need to channel that information to the authorities and tell them we need to do this. Thank you.